Sometimes people ask me what my favorite GameCube games are. Usually I'll list the classics, but something always comes up that makes some people throw up their eyebrows. Super Monkey Ball. You roll a monkey in a ball into the goal. Cute concept, but what makes it so special that it deserves to be recognized as one of the best GameCube games? I mean, you only play the game using the control stick. No other buttons are used. The truth is, Super Monkey Ball takes what is a simple concept and goes literally balls to the wall crazy with it. So you've probably played with one of these things in your life. If not, this is a labyrinth game in which you tilt a tiny ball into a hole. This is what the core of Super Monkey Ball is. But when Amusement Vision were developing Super Monkey Ball, they realized they could do so much more with this idea because of the accuracy that analog control gives you. And keep this in mind while we go over the amazing achievements of the first two Super Monkey Ball games. But hey, speaking of which, what about the others? Well, Super Monkey Ball could have become legendary had it kept up its quality standard, but a lot of factors unfortunately led to the downfall of the series. Don't worry, we'll be going over everything today. I'm Liam Triforce, and in this video, we'll be documenting the rise and fall of the monkeys, and in turn, we'll be determining the do's and don'ts of the Super Monkey Ball series. In the beginning, there was one arcade machine to rule them all. Monkey Ball was released in Japan in June of 2001 and ate up yen with its unique and addictive gameplay. The rest of the world would see it when it was ported to the Nintendo GameCube as Super Monkey Ball, with updated visuals and some awesome multiplayer modes. This is where the series would get its start, as it was very well received and sold exceptionally well upon release, even throughout 2002. It was definitely more than meets the eye and a standout launch title for the GameCube. It had revolutionary visuals for the time with its use of reflections, anti-aliasing, and a stable 60 frames per second. It had a catchy soundtrack, awesome minigames, and most importantly, a challenging but addictive main game. As previously mentioned, every stage is about guiding the monkey into the goal. The stages start damn simple, but as you progress, you'll notice that this isn't your typical labyrinth game. Each stage is completely different from the last, focusing on a central idea per stage rather than creating several slightly varying mazes. This is a surefire method to keep you playing. This way, you'll never know what they'll do next. One level could be about balancing, another could be about bouncing. They're all vastly different structures that you have to figure out. Very rarely do they ever create a stage that is actually reminiscent of their inspiration. Because this is a video game, Amusement Vision were able to make the impossible possible thanks to their physics engine and the advent of analog control. Controlling the monkey at breakneck speeds and balancing them along narrow bridges is entirely feasible now. This makes for some magnificent levels that always aim to surprise and challenge. But perhaps the most important thing to notice is that you're tilting the stage, not the monkey. Yes, the level design may have gotten crazier than your average wooden labyrinth toy, but controlling the monkey stays true to that idea. This is what makes the physics of Super Monkey Ball so compelling. Let's shift our focus to another Sega game for a moment to discuss physics and momentum. In Sonic, you have the ability to influence your character's speed and momentum at any point in time, with full freedom to steer jumps and spin dashes. There's a sense of accomplishment in pulling off a spin dash jump in both the 2D and 3D Sonic games because of how you can manipulate speed. In Super Monkey Ball, things are completely different. You have to get used to the fact that physics don't work like your typical platformer. The entire game revolves around this idea, and I love that it teaches you how to get better at the game through very unique challenges. Here's an example of how this game handles momentum, with this stage where the platform is warped. In a regular game, you'd be able to run right back up a slope, albeit slower than you would just going down a straight path. In this game, you have a snowball's chance in hell of making it back up to a level surface unless you've picked up a lot of speed and can steer yourself back up, or you haven't drifted too far to the edge. An example of this game's physics engine? Tilt the stage left and right to clear a path through the sliding metal bars. Trying to figure out how to create a path is super cool, and it's not something I can say I've seen in many games. As a test for speed, the game has you pick up enough speed by rolling the monkey around the bowl consecutively. Once you've got enough, you'll clear the goal. They make you bounce with speed and sudden drop-offs, they make you balance with narrow paths, and they throw a ton of ideas together every now and again, like in the stages with stairs, inclines, and narrow paths together, or this one with bumps, slopes, and sliding metal bars, and tricky jumping too. Master the subtle depth of both its physics and its oh-so-perfect analog control, and you're in for a good time. By going through all of these stages, you get a surface level understanding of how the game works, and that's enough to enjoy Super Monkey Ball for what it is. Seriously, but what if I told you that there's more to this game than you might think? Once you get accustomed to the controls and how levels are designed, your next objective could be to go for the secret goals. Certain levels contain one goal, which skip a level for you, but other levels have goals that will skip 2 or more. To go for these, you have to have practiced all sorts of different methods of getting your monkey through the stage, such as balancing along extremely narrow paths with perfect precision, finding alternative ways to get to the goal, like this one here where I line myself up just right with the red goal. Now you might be wondering why you'd skip levels in this game. It's because if you clear beginner or advanced difficulty without losing a life, you'll gain access to the extra levels for each respective difficulty. And if you clear expert as well as its extra levels without using a continue, you'll ascend to the elusive master levels. So there's a risk versus reward in going for the secret goals in order to see more of the game. Not to mention, they're really fun to try out. So in the beginning you might be collecting bananas to keep your life counter up there, so you can see all of the levels that this game has to offer. But as you get better at the game, you want to go more for the secret goals so that you can get to the end without dying once. You're risking dying because of the tougher routes, but at the same time you're getting closer to those extra levels. And to this day I've never been able to even reach the extra levels in expert. But that's why there's a practice mode, so you can get better at all the levels you've encountered in the game. An excellent addition. Just like the old saying goes, practice makes perfect. That's how you'll end up getting through the harder levels on the expert difficulty setting. Just play these levels again and again until you've mastered them. This philosophy of practice makes perfect would become the primary focus of this game's sequel, Super Monkey Ball 2. Just to preface, Super Monkey Ball 2 is one of my favorite games of all time. In my eyes, it remains the only game in the series to push the boundaries of my abilities, to play differently, to go for the gold in new and exciting ways. The best way they did this was with the story mode. Boasting 100 levels, Super Monkey Ball 2's story mode wants you to be comfortable with failure. It does this by removing extra lives and keeping them to challenge mode, so you can retry levels as much as you like until you eventually conquer them. This is such a great way to help you get better at the game. You have unlimited tries during the story mode to clear levels however you want, and with this freedom in mind, go for the secret goals as much as you like. Throw your monkey down the paths without any concern for its well-being. Try to find new and creative ways to play Super Monkey Ball because they're all around you. This is where I realized just how beautiful Super Monkey Ball truly had the potential to be. It was clear in the first game, but with this freedom, you have more room to pull it off yourself. Jumping off the edge of the slide level to land in the goal, falling off of downhill and landing just right so you can roll your monkey into the goal, throwing yourself down the beehive path and bouncing yourself on just the right parts to get to the end. They egg you on with this one too, with the bananas on the risky path. Is balancing along it too difficult? Make your monkey scream! I think because of this, Beehive is one of my favorite levels in the game. It's both a test of physics and momentum, and a test of the ingenuity required of the player to fly through the level. With the right inputs every time, you can make the same results happen, and that's a great example of the depth that the controls have. Speaking of making the right inputs every time, here's another great example of that. If you hold forward at the perfect time, you can clear the moving goal in the Pro Skaters level. You don't actually have to pause buffer to time it, although that certainly makes it easier. You can gauge the exact moment the goal will be right where you want it by watching intently. All of this absurd fun is made possible with even more diverse and crazy levels too. I could show you virtually any level from this game and you'd be able to see how Amusement Vision were able to take things beyond the original game. There are amazing levels in this game that don't even resemble the original inspiration for the series, but instead form an identity for the series on its own. Structures to test velocity that surpass anything we saw in the first game, like launchers, which is all about finding the right position to launch yourself in, influencing the monkey's momentum to land in just the right way. Gravity Slider, which is fucking fun if you decide to go for the bananas. Look at I Go! They accustom you to its difficulty and mechanics in really interesting ways. Here's a level called Seesaw Bridges from World 4. At this point, you should be used to how Super Monkey Ball's momentum works, and it's a neat way to apply what you've learned. Tilting the stage doesn't immediately tilt the bridge, so you need to make sure that you aren't on one side for too long. Seems simple, but then in World 6 they put holes in the middle, which makes executing the same motions a lot more difficult. Once you master that level though, you can go for the secret goal in challenge mode where the bridge is even thinner. There's a similar level to the one with the warped platforms from the first game in this one, although this one is much trickier and a great way to test you on the game's physics. They also do this with levels like linear seesaws, organic form, and so many more. They also use switches so that you can adjust the speed of certain moving levels to your liking, or pause them entirely at just the right moment. Some people aren't keen on their inclusion, but I think they're awesome because of how you're given the freedom of choice to fuck around in levels. There's Opera for testing stairs, a Tangled Path for testing your timing and momentum due to how you have to adjust yourself with the bridge, and oh boy, World 10. 3D Maze is so fucking fun to figure out. It's like if you turned a Labyrinth game into a Tesseract, perfect for turning the inspiration for Monkey Ball on its head. And the final level is so cool. You have to find your way to the goal through the Amusement Vision logo by calculating and timing it just right so that you have enough speed and momentum to clear the letters. Man, I could go on for hours, but you should understand by now why Super Monkey Ball 2 is all sorts of genius. Yeah, not every level is perfect, nor is the level placement. For example, Switch Inferno was a shitty guessing game. Triangle holes, quick turn, and other specific levels clearly weren't tested properly, since I could just hold forward the whole time to clear the goal. Arthropod is placed way too early in the game for what it is. You can either figure out the right path towards the goal once it comes around, or just drop down into it. However, you have a giant spider thing moving constantly. Either way, you're just gonna be waiting for the right moment, and it's frustrating navigating around this thing. So you might die a lot on this one, forcing you to wait all over again. If they put it after Freefall, a similar level in World 5 that tests you on dropping from great distances and aiming yourself, I probably wouldn't complain. Despite all that though, Super Monkey Ball 2 is so solid throughout that I couldn't give a fuck that it's flawed. It's also accompanied by a wonderfully weird story starring Ai, Mimi, Baby, and Gon as they fight back against the evil Dr. Bad Boon. Yep, that's really his name. Throughout the story, some weird things happen, and Dr. Bad Boon has a creepy sexual attraction to Mimi. He tries to marry her, take a bath with her. Yeah. Every cutscene is super entertaining though, and the story mode is much more enjoyable with them. And if all that weren't enough, they also improved upon the challenge mode by letting you unlock more extra lives with the play points you earn. That's why you want to grab the bananas in both story mode and in challenge mode. It gives players that are struggling to make it to the end of certain difficulties without using a continue stand more of a chance, thus letting them finally persevere and gain access to the extra and master levels. And just like the first game, you can take on the challenge mode with up to 3 other people beside you, making for one hell of a fun competition, and something that I love doing when I have friends over. Speaking of which, they also give you more to do in the party games section, like the awesome Monkey Soccer and Monkey Baseball, and improved upon some of the games. Monkey Target now lets every monkey go at once, instead of taking turns, for example. With all of this, you could spend fucking hours upon hours playing Super Monkey Ball 2, and you still can with people far away by using Dolphin's netplay. Super Monkey Ball 2, man. It's no joke. And you know what? It's made a positive impact in the world based on its controls and its level design. In 2013, a study was conducted at a Florida hospital where surgeons would play Super Monkey Ball 2 before an operation in order to warm up. It helped them suppress errors and become more efficient. That's how important the accuracy of Super Monkey Ball 2's controls were. The controls in that game are helping people save lives. This game is what defines Super Monkey Ball for me. In level design, it continuously blows your fucking mind with its physics, test of speed, momentum-based puzzles, and so many more. In multiplayer, it's endless amounts of fun. And before I move on, the soundtrack, man, oh my god. You need to take a listen. So both these games were fantastic, but then a tragedy occurred. While Amusement Vision were working on Super Monkey Ball 3, and after they released the stellar F-Zero GX, Sega made the decision to merge them with their research and development division. This wouldn't completely kill the series, however. Super Monkey Ball Deluxe would be released in 2005 after the third game's cancellation, which included every level featured in the first 2 games as well as 45 levels intended for Super Monkey Ball 3. Although this one never hit the GameCube, not that it would need to, this was a great way to introduce the other 6th-gen install bases to Super Monkey Ball. And to this day is a great way to experience it if you don't have a way to play the GameCube versions. Although I'll say this, don't play it on PS2 unless it's your only option. It has a lower frame rate, looks worse, and I find the analog stick to be too bulky for this game. The Xbox version is great, and it's compatible with the Xbox 360, but it's just a hair off due to the lack of the octagonal borders that were present on the GameCube controller. Those borders helped so much with being accurate when controlling your monkey. You could gauge how much you've tilted the stick and in which position it was in to a T. I'm sorry if I keep going on about the controls of Super Monkey Ball, but they really are that important. But alas, this wouldn't be the end of different control schemes in Super Monkey Ball. Super Monkey Ball Touch and Roll would be released for the DS in the same year, and it's pretty much a compromised version of Deluxe. You either play it with a stylus or the D-pad. One gives you thumb cramps, the other will fuck up your wrist. Big time. Still good for portable monkey ball, I suppose. At least if you can deal with the controls. It's better than Super Monkey Ball Jr., which was released back in 2002. While it is really impressive for a Game Boy Advance port of the original game, playing at a lower frame rate on a smaller screen and with a D-pad isn't super fun. But let's come back to this idea of control schemes for Super Monkey Ball in a little bit. It's important, because Sega would later experiment with motion controls in a certain Wii launch title that we'll get to in a second. But first, one more Super Monkey Ball game was released during the 6th generation of consoles. A frightening game. A sickening game. One that caused so much agony it was never released in Japan. It struck the GameCube. It struck the PS2. It struck the PSP. For some reason. It's Super Monkey Ball Adventure. This game sucks. Not just because they tried to create a 3D platformer without a jump button, not just because the missions are boring and repetitive, not just because the controls are absolute agony in the story mode, not just because it crashes frequently and even caused an SGDQ run to nearly die.
What?
But because its challenge mode is a shit stain on what should have been a last hurrah to Super Monkey Ball's legacy on the 6th generation. The physics are wrong. They're extremely floaty and not nearly as fun to play with as they are in the original games. They can be problematic in the stages that have you bounce a lot, because they'll lead you to flying through the air for an insane amount of time, or in stages where tilting is key to keeping your monkey on the platform, because you'll just fall off at any subtle change in positioning from what is basically dead center. A lot of this is due to the fact that Traveler's Tales reused an engine that they used for Crash to Insanity. Yeah, that part with Crash Bandicoot and Cortex was kinda cute for a one-off thing, but making an entire game that revolves around this with this engine? No. The levels featured in this game aren't terribly offensive, some of them even being pretty cool, like the level Bowls, which gives me flashbacks to that one level in Super Monkey Ball 2, and Skid Slalom for its unique mixture of the sliders and pinpoint tilting. But most of the levels aren't inspired, and sometimes they just suck ass. I hate the stage Freewheeler because of the janky ass physics and repetition involved in guiding the monkey around, and around, and around, until years later you finally reach the goal. And on top of that, it's fucking nauseating! Overall, it's just not a very memorable challenge mode, and it has less levels than Monkey Ball 1, but at least it's better than whatever the fuck the story mode was. Yet perhaps the worst thing about this game is how they had access to so many assets under Sega, and despite this, completely failed to take proper advantage of them. I'm not sure if it was Traveler's Tales' fault or Sega's, but considering this statement from an issue of Nintendo Power from 2006, it's easy to see the primary reason of why and how this game lost sight of what made Super Monkey Ball so great. Super Monkey Ball was already accessible. You can't refute that. It's what made the series so compelling and easy to jump into. It's what made it so much fun to master. We've gone over the different ways Super Monkey Ball was able to capture the hearts of people around the world with its simple concept. This move to make the game more accessible would prove to be fatal, because when Super Monkey Ball Banana Blitz for the Wii rolled around in 2006, the series' fate would finally be sealed. I found Banana Blitz to be alright. I enjoyed playing it most of the time, but it would inspire a lot of the poor choices that would plague the series from this game onward. Although it had a pretty awesome feature, one that is unique to this game, the ability to jump. Yeah, this probably would have been nice in the story mode of Monkey Ball Adventure, but Traveler's Tales squandered that big time, huh? Anyway, the cool thing about the jump in Banana Blitz is that it resets your momentum, allowing for some awesome maneuvering around stages. And it's really helpful with the motion controls because you're able to reset your position. The motion controls, however, I don't think they were a good change considering how important the accuracy was in the old games, which provided a lot of the depth and fun of Monkey Ball. And even though most people will agree that they take some time to get used to, Despite Super Monkey Ball's simplicity and pick-up-and-play nature being one of the best things about it, this game is different overall, and the motion controls are fun to use in their own right, so I'm not super tilted about the concept. They make navigating the levels feel pretty dang good. Sometimes. However, the controls also help highlight just how flawed Banana Blitz is. Most of the levels revert to the original inspiration for Super Monkey Ball, and are a drastic departure from anything we've seen thus far. They're actually labyrinthine levels, something more akin to Marble Madness or its successors. Gone are the unique structures and fun ways of testing physics. Gone is the philosophy of centering on a single idea per level. The stages this time are really only about guiding a monkey and a ball into the goal. Although sometimes it retains the frantic nature of the old games, most of the time it plays it safe. I feel like this was almost their only logical option after switching control schemes, and it's detrimental to the game. And if that weren't enough, they introduced perhaps the biggest no-no in the Super Monkey Ball series. Guardrails. Fuck these things. They are comparable to putting up the bumpers in bowling. That shit is meant for babies that can't throw a ball very fast or keep it steady. I wouldn't be complaining if they stopped using them after the first world or something, but they keep using them for a long time. I can't even say that they use them to compensate for the motion controls, because there are levels that don't have any guardrails in sight and end up being really challenging. And some of them come right before levels with guardrails. It doesn't make any sense. This game also has some pretty awful level mechanics. Doors that have you wait for them to open, stairs that are a nightmare to navigate, and just generally waiting for a long time with little input from the player. It also has boss battles, which are all pretty shitty, except for the ones that revolve around navigation. This is a good, proper test in a game about rolling your monkey into the goal, but most of them are just about butting against a weak spot and they're gross. But nothing compares to this game's biggest problem. Remember how I mentioned that the motion controls are less accurate than using an analog stick? Well, sometimes Banana Blitz will step out of its comfort zone with levels that require accuracy. These are absolutely infuriating with a Wii Remote, since the measure of depth you have with it doesn't even compare to something that's smaller, only requires your thumb, and has just the right amount of tilting range that you can gauge while playing in order to master the game. This, combined with the occasionally wonky collision, and you have a recipe for disaster when it comes to these stages. This is the best way I can sum up my thoughts on this game's level design. One of my favorite things about the older games levels is the fact that even a decade and a half later, I could say, oh, I remember this one, or, oh, I love this one, all the damn time. From this game onward, this never happened with me, and when the levels did evoke a reaction out of me, it was usually an expletive. I played Monkey Ball a lot as a kid. Everything from the original game when I was a youngin', up until Super Monkey Ball 3D in my early teens. I played frequently just because it was so addicting. But despite all that, I couldn't remember a single level from Banana Blitz onward because they were all generic and blended together. Yes, sometimes they have different stage gimmicks. Yes, sometimes they do experiment a little bit, but most of the time the levels just mesh together in a gross blend of roll the monkey into the goal, sometimes you'll go fast, sometimes you'll have to hop, I guess, and sometimes there'll be guardrails. Speaking of that, the best levels in this game test your navigation because that's something this game thrives in. That's why I liked the motion controls to begin with. They made navigating the stage fun. That's why I was ready for this game to be different. Yeah, it wasn't going to be the same as the other games, but it was going to be a fun, frantic labyrinth game. That's the kind of game I was ready to consume. But instead, they fucked up in quite a few areas, not knowing what they wanted to do with the Monkey Ball series next. I hope I explained my thoughts on Banana Blitz well enough, because this game is weird. It tries to be different, but sometimes it tries to harken back to the old games, and it's just a confused, jumbled mess of a game that would lead to the rest of the series' downfall. So, yeah. This game has more don'ts than do's. But you know what? The do's definitely come from the awesome minigames, the beautiful new art style, and some of the best music the series has ever had. But unfortunately, these nice extras aren't enough to make a Super Monkey Ball game good. The core of it has to succeed in being creative, addictive, and replayable if you want people to talk about it for years to come. And unfortunately, it seems like Sega never knew how to quite recapture that, despite having ample time to do so. The next installment, Super Monkey Ball Step and Roll, is more of the same, but with even worse level design than its predecessor. Remember how I said that navigation was the best part of Banana Blitz? This is not what I meant. It boils down to rolling through very generic, easy paths with guardrails and indents to guide your way. probably to compensate for the shitty peripheral under your feet. That's right, you have the option to use the Wii balance board, but like, no, don't. So yeah, they wanted to design all these stages with the Wii balance board in mind, and it leads to an incredibly boring experience. At this point, it was clear that Sega saw Super Monkey Ball as a simple party game more than anything, and opted to treat it as a testing ground for console gimmicks. This would lead to Super Monkey Ball 3D, which had somewhat better level design than Step and Roll, but is still more of the same generic blend of blech. And they wouldn't ditch the fucking guardrails, just like the other games. Dear God, is it really that hard to go back and look at the games Amusement Vision made? It may seem like I'm glossing over these newer games, but they seriously are that throwaway. They introduce so many baby mechanics that make the game so fucking easy to go through. If I wanted something like this, I'd play Marble Madness, and that game provides challenge in its own right. The newer Super Monkey Ball games offer nothing to further the series conceptually. I've played through all of the games I'd mentioned thus far, and I can say I don't care for any of them the way I do the original two games. The only one I haven't played is Super Monkey Ball Banana Splits, and you know what? It looked like a return to form for the series. The level design is creative and interesting, and sometimes does new and exciting things. It even has a damn level editor, about time. I'm not sure if it's limited or not, but either way, I'd be sold on this installment with all of this at hand. There's just one problem. It's on the fucking Vita! So barely anyone picked it up and it fell into obscurity. Not only because of it being a Vita exclusive, but because at this point the series' reputation was in shambles, thanks to Sega's complete disregard for what made Super Monkey Ball great in the first place. The originals weren't just simple labyrinth games. They were unique, physics-based puzzle games that went above and beyond the inspiration it took from games like Marble Madness. Like I touched upon before, what makes Marble Madness good is its slow pace and calculation when navigating levels. Super Monkey Ball was a fast-paced version of this that evolved the formula. It created unique structures that revolve around a central idea per level. It revolved around testing momentum, physics, speed, velocity, jumping, bumping, rolling. The levels would always keep you wanting more because it was an endless stream of creativity. But somehow, Sega completely dropped the ball on that one. They made sure that every stage would be an empty husk of what the series once was, going back to the first idea for it, and just doing that in order to shit the games out for money, with low effort stages that treat you like a baby and guardrails in case you get just a little too close to the edge while moving at a snail's pace. Ugh. With all this, Sega completely killed Super Monkey Ball. There's always a chance of it coming back, but we haven't seen a main series game since Banana Splits came out in 2012. So modders took it upon themselves to create custom levels for Super Monkey Ball 2. And you know what? With all this creativity, these new ideas that expand upon what made the original so great, it makes me wonder, why not just make an entire game that is just about creating Super Monkey Ball levels? Super Monkey Ball Maker. So you'd have the marathon mode, in this case it'd be challenge mode, where it throws you into a bunch of different user-created levels one after the other, and you have to make it to the end of the challenge mode without losing all your lives. It'd have all of the tools you need from all the games in order to build awesome stages. You could adjust the timer in case you want to make a long and really challenging stage, place bananas wherever you like, add secret goals that help in challenge mode. It'd gauge what's included in the challenge mode based on the clear rate the levels have and what difficulty you select. And of course, you can play levels individually. Just imagine the kind of stages people would make. People that actually understand what made Super Monkey Ball good in the first place. It's a fucking steal. With a strong marketing campaign and a release on all the major consoles, and PC if they want to be nice, I have a feeling the game would do well. But I don't think Sega is interested in Super Monkey Ball anymore, and I don't know when they'll ever be interested again. Hopefully we see something out of the series that is more akin to what Amusement Vision did in the future, if we don't get what I suggested. These have been the do's and don'ts of the Super Monkey Ball series. Hopefully you thought about the design of the series up to this point and consider what made the series become a series in the first place. I've been Liam Triforce, and I'd like to thank you for watching. Have some Gone Gone.
You so fucking precious when you smile. Hit it from the back and drive you wild. Girl, I lose myself up in those